Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for our 10th regional webinar taking place across the province, outlining the government's supports in light of COVID-19. My name is Derek Rowland. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff and Director of Communications to the Honourable Lisa MacLeod, Ontario's Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture Industries. I have the pleasure of being your moderator here today. Before we get into the formal portion of today's presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Minister MacLeod for some opening remarks. Minister, over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Derek, and thanks to all of you for joining us here today. I guess we're nearing about 200 people. Look, the Premier will be making an announcement later today, and at 2 p.m. We're going to be unpacking what that means for our sectors with him at a separate webinar. But today's webinar is very much about the supports that our government has in place for our sectors and how we can best address that. So I know I'm joined today, and they'll speak very briefly, is Minister Monte McNaughton, who has served with me in the legislature for many years, in addition to our cabinet colleague, Minister Jeff Yurek, who also has served in many years in our legislature, but with us. And so they'll both be adding their voices. They're very strong advocates of safely reopening the economy. Of course, as Minister of Labour and Minister of Parks and Environment, have a critical role in what that reopening will look like. I know, and they know, that our sectors have been hit first, hardest, and will take the longest to recover. And we also recognize that it will be a long recovery for us. That said, the government has, within our ministry as well as within other ministries, supports in place that we can access. And that's what really today is about. So first, we'll walk you through my ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture Industries, the regulations as they sit now, which will change later today, as well as some of the supports that we have in place. And I'll be talking a little bit more today at 2 p.m. about some additional funding announcements that we will be making. But today our purpose is to talk about the $103 million Ontario Trillium Foundation and its increase over the next 2 years by $100 million, and how that can support tourism, economic development, sport, heritage, and cultural institutions as we move forward. So there'll be a deck on that. In addition, we have an additional $25 million to support the existing $60 million Ontario Arts Council. 24 million of that will go to cultural institutions across the province, and $1 million will be reserved for individual artists so we can best support them. From there, Ministry of Finance officials will be on to talk about 3 programs, the small business grant of up to $20,000, the Main Street PPE grant for $1,000, as well as the energy and property tax relief that we have offer. Finally, we'll be joined by the Ministry of Government and Communities, Government and Consumer Services, ministry, and they will walk us through the portal on how you actually apply for these. If you have any questions, you're welcome to use the Q&A chat box below, or if you'd like, you can send an email to minister.mcleod@ontario.ca. Again, it's minister.mcleod@ontario.ca. And from there, I'll just turn it over to Minister McNaughton.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. And Minister MacLeod, thank you so much for the invitation to be here today. I just also want to take a few seconds and say to Lisa and to her team, what an outstanding champion that this sector has within government. I know Minister Yurek and I will agree that Lisa, at cabinet in caucus is always advocating for this industry. And we know, truly how hard hit this industry has been during COVID-19. And this is such an important town hall and roundtable to have today. So everybody knows the supports that the government is putting out there for everyone. Just from my ministry at Ministry of Labour Training and Skills Development, I just wanted to highlight one website that will be important, and most of you will know already, but it's ontario.ca/COVID safety. Ontario.ca/COVID safety. That's where we have free resources for your sector to use, whether it's posters, tip sheets, videos on how to keep places safe and to prevent COVID-19 from coming in to the workplace. So with that, I just want to say thanks to everyone. It's great, Lisa, that you're having this for all of these businesses and groups across Southwestern Ontario. They play such a huge role in all of our communities. So with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Minister Yurek.
Thanks very much, Monty. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to be really quick, so I want to hear what has to be said here. Thank you very much, Lisa, very much for touring the province. And as Monty said, she's such a champion at the cabinet table to pushing for this industry, as well as we work over the next few weeks at getting things reopened. We want to make sure that you're supported and sustainable as we approach a high tourist season. So, my office is here, any of the local folks on here to help you through any of the processes that are mentioned today to make sure that you have as little of barrier or issues as possible at attaining any of the support that is needed. And I look forward to the ongoing reopening of Ontario and an enjoyable spring and summer and fall that we can get out and enjoy Ontario. So thanks again very much.
Thank you very much, Ministers, for your kind words. With that, we're going to get started with the formal portion of our presentation here today. But before we do, let me first just say that following today's presentation, you will receive an email from us, which will include all the links that are discussed in today's presentations, linking you to how to get more information on the particular grants, but also how to apply, as well as a full recording of today's presentation. So if you're not taking notes or if you need to reference it back to something, it will be sent directly to you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Debbie Jewell, who is a director within our Tourism Investment Division, to walk through the current restrictions as in place across the province as a result of the province-wide lockdown, which is still currently in effect until the Premier makes additional announcement details later today, but are also important to understand as they impact some of the eligibility requirements that will be discussed through the small business granting program by the Ministry of Finance later in today's presentations. So with that, Debbie, I'll turn it over to you and Neil to walk through the current restrictions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Derek. Thank you, Ministers, and good morning to everyone out there. I'm going to really quickly take you through this summary of information regarding measures that came into effect in Ontario between January 12th and 14th, including businesses permitted to open and sector-specific restrictions. As the Minister mentioned, today we will be hearing more about changes to the province-wide shutdown. So what we're going through today is really in effect for the short term, but as Derek mentioned, these restrictions are relevant to the business support program, so it's good for everyone to hear. So I'll go through the tourism and culture related items, and my colleague Neil Coburn will follow up with the sport and recreation sectors. Then I will take you through the new programs that the Minister mentioned as well. So in terms of the meeting or event spaces, these are only currently permitted to open for the operation of childcare centers, court services, government services, mental health and addiction support services, social services, and collective bargaining, as long as no more than 10 people are permitted to occupy the rented space. For short-term rentals like cottages and cabins, they are only to be provided to individuals who are in need of housing. And previously made reservations for short-term rental accommodations are only for people in need of housing. Ice fishing huts may only be rented out for day use and only by members of the same household. These conditions do not apply for the purpose of exercising an Aboriginal or treaty right. For restaurants, bars, and other food or drink establishments, they are currently only open for takeout, drive-through, and delivery, and that includes the sale of alcohol. Next slide. In terms of services, hotels, motels, lodges, cabins, cottages, etc., they are open. However, indoor pools, indoor fitness centers, or other indoor recreational facilities that are part of the operation of these businesses are closed. Seasonal campgrounds must be made available only for trailers or recreation vehicles used by individuals in need of housing or for seasonal contracts. Campsites with electricity and water services and sewage may be provided for use, but recreational and other shared facilities, excluding washrooms and showers, must be closed. In terms of media industries, including sound recording, production, publishing, distribution businesses, they are allowed to operate. Commercial film and television production, including all supporting activities such as hair, makeup, wardrobe, are all able to operate. However, there can be no studio audiences permitted, no more than 10 performers. The set must be configured to operate in such a way that persons on the set maintain a physical distance. Persons who provide hair or makeup services must wear appropriate personal protective equipment, and singers or players of brass or wind instruments must be separated from any other performance by plexiglass or some other impermeable barrier. The following are also permitted to open currently: film and television post-production, visual effects and animation studios, book and periodical production, publishing and distribution businesses, commercial and industrial photography. However, retail studios are not permitted to open, and interactive digital media businesses, including computer systems, software, or application developers and publishers, and video game developers and publishers. Next slide. In terms of entertainment, such as concert venues, theaters, and cinemas, including drive-in and drive-through events, these are all closed currently for all purposes, including rehearsing or performing a recorded or broadcasted concert, artistic event, theater performance, or other performance. Libraries may open currently for contactless curbside pickup and return, or for delivery only. For permitted services such as childcare, mental health and addiction support services, or the provision of social services. And they must ensure that circulating materials returned to the library are disinfected or quarantined for an appropriate period of time before they are recirculated. If someone is entering for permitted services, contact information recording is currently required. Currently, museums and cultural amenities are closed. Horse racing is for training only, no races, no members of the public. Nightclubs are only permitted to open if they operate as a food or drink establishment, subject to conditions that apply to restaurants and bars. So next slide. Zoos and aquariums are closed to the public, and they are only permitted for the care of animals. Amusement parks and water parks remain closed, and tour and guide services are closed. And I'll turn it over to Neil now for the sport and recreation facilities.
Thank you, Debbie. Businesses that are permitted to be open under the province-wide shutdown and sector-specific restrictions on the sport and recreation sector include all indoor and outdoor sport and recreation facilities are to be closed, except for facilities that are operated for the sole use of high-performance athletes who are training for the next Olympic and Paralympic Games. 7 professional leagues that are identified under the regulations that can return to play in the facilities that they own and operate with a plan that's approved by the Chief Medical Officer of Health. At this time, only the National Hockey League has been granted such approval. And facilities that are open for the sole purposes of providing a childcare, as well as mental health and addiction services, and other social services with a gathering limit of 10 people. There are other conditions that apply as well, such as social distancing, wearing of face masks, registries for contact tracing. Under outdoor recreational amenities, no person is permitted to use an indoor or outdoor recreational amenity that has been identified to be closed. There are outdoor recreational amenities that are permitted to be open, subject to conditions. These include park and recreational areas, baseball diamonds, batting cages, soccer, football, and sport fields, tennis courts, basketball courts, BMX and skate parks, frisbee golf locations, cycling tracks and bike trails, horse riding facilities, shooting ranges, ice rinks, tobogganing hills, snowmobile, cross-country, dog sledding, ice skating, and snowshoe trails, playgrounds, and portions of parks and recreational areas containing outdoor fitness equipment. Ski hills are closed. And the subsequent side, there are some public health and workplace safety measures that need to be followed when using an outdoor recreational amenity. Next slide, please. Thank you. So if you are using a permitted outdoor recreational amenity, you must maintain a social distancing of at least 2 meters from another person using that amenity, excluding individuals from the same household. Team sports or other sports or games where people would potentially come in contact within 2 meters of each other are not to be practiced or played within the amenity. So for an example, an outdoor ice skating rink, while you can do pleasure skating, you're currently not allowed to play any shinny hockey. Any locker rooms, change rooms, showers, and clubhouses are to remain closed, except to the extent that they provide access to equipment storage a washroom, or a portion of the facility that is being used to provide first aid. And I'll turn it back over to Debbie to speak to some of the specific sector supports being offered by the ministry.
Thank you, Neil. So as the minister mentioned, the 2020 provincial budget announced 2 programs to support tourism, culture, and sport organizations. So the first is the Community Building Fund. The province is investing $100 million over 2 years to develop a community building fund that supports community tourism, culture, and sport organizations, which are experiencing significant financial pressures due to the pandemic. These organizations support community engagement, tourism, and recreation through a variety of attractions, experiences, events, and activities. So funding would be available to support not-for-profit organizations and municipalities, and the program will be delivered by the Ontario Trillium Foundation with 2 streams. The first stream supports local community tourism, heritage, sport, and culture not-for-profits such as community museums, local theaters, fairs, and cultural institutions to help sustain their operations in the short term and create new attractions, experiences, and events. And funding for the second stream is funding for municipalities and not-for-profit sport and recreation organizations to make investments in infrastructure rehabilitation and renovation in order to meet public health protocols and local community needs. The Ontario Trillium Foundation has been selected as the program delivery agent for this program, as they are well positioned to deliver funding to municipalities, Indigenous communities, and the not-for-profit sector. They have strong relationships with sector stakeholders and experience delivering grants on behalf of the government in a timely manner. OTF has robust systems in place for processing and evaluating funding applications and for tracking and reporting on results. So details of this fund are being finalized, and more information will be forthcoming in the very near future. So on the next slide, the second program is the emergency support for core arts organizations. And again, the provincial budget announced that the government is providing one-time emergency funding of $25 million for Ontario arts or institutions to help cover operating losses incurred as a result of COVID-19. This funding will help these organizations remain solvent and prepare for a time when they can fully reopen their facilities, resume full programming, and welcome back their visitors and audiences. The Ontario Arts Council has been selected as the program delivery agent based on their expertise and their history of funding Ontario's core arts organizations, including major organizations. The agency has robust systems in place for processing and evaluating funding applications and for tracking and reporting on results. Again, details of this funding program are also being finalized, and more information will be coming in the coming days. So I will now turn it back to Derek for the next agenda item.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Neil, appreciate you walking everyone through those current restrictions, but also those 2 upcoming opportunities, which I know everyone is very much looking forward to. The final details are being ironed out, and we will be releasing more information on how to access those supports in the very near future. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim Sherman, who's an Assistant Deputy Minister in the Ministry of Finance, to walk us through the small business support grants offered through their ministry. This provides up to $20,000 of support, so long as those eligible do apply. And just a reminder, if you do have any questions, you can use the QA box below. However, as some of this information being presented is related to another ministry, including the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, and what will be Government and Consumer Services. If we cannot answer your question, we will make sure to redirect you through our email if you contact us at minister.mcleod@ontario.ca. With that, I'll turn it over to Tim to begin today's presentation. Tim, over to you.
Thank you for that. So it's going to provide a kind of a high-level overview of the grant, and hopefully be a helpful scene setter before folks take you through the detail of the portal. So turning to slide 2, government announced the move to a broader province-wide shutdown on December the 21st, and at the same time announced that it would be introducing a new Ontario Small Business Support Grant in recognition of the impact that the shutdown would have on Ontario small businesses. It's worth noting that this new grant is over and above other existing programs that the province has put in place, such as the property tax and energy rebates, or the support that's available to businesses through many federal programs. So the new grant will provide a minimum of $10,000 and up to $20,000 for eligible small businesses that are expected to experience a minimum of a 20% decline in revenue. So every small business will be able to use the support to navigate the challenging times and whatever makes the most sense for them. I think all of you on this call will have a much better sense of some of the ways in which businesses will be able to use this support. And there are 3 basic eligibility requirements in the bottom of the slide, which are probably a helpful framework to use when thinking about eligibility for the program. So first, the business needs to be either closed or significantly restricted by the provincial shutdown. And we have a list of businesses or categories of businesses that meet that eligibility later on in the slide deck. And the portal, of course, in the application will make that clear. Second, this is targeted at small businesses. And so the definition that is being used for this program is common in other contexts. And it's having less than 100 employees. So basically between 0 and 99 employees at the enterprise level. And finally, the business needs to be able to demonstrate that it will experience a minimum of 20% revenue decline as a result of the shutdown. The primary way that this will be measured is by comparing April 2020 with April 2019 monthly revenue. But there are alternate measurements in place for businesses who were maybe established outside this window. And we also have a slide to show you what some of those comparative points will be. And of course, the applications for the new program opened today. So the portal that folks will take you through is now available for applications. Next slide, please. So there's just a couple of examples on the slide, which we thought might be helpful to take folks through so you can kind of understand how those parameters that I just walked through sort of tangibly work their way through the program. So we have kind of 2 companies, Company A, Company B on the bottom of the slide there. And I think we just assume that both these companies meet the business eligibility test in terms of being shut down or significantly restricted. And if you look at Company A on the left, so you'll see that it says there it'll experience a monthly loss of $20,000, which is equivalent in their context to a 25% decline in revenue. So that means they meet the 20% revenue test, and they will be eligible for a $20,000 grant, which is also the maximum, but it fully offsets the revenue decline that's been presented by the company. And then on the right, there's a monthly loss of $15,000, which is also 20%. So they meet the 20% threshold for the decline, and that entire amount, $15,000, would be funded. So turning to slide 4 to talk a little bit about the revenue comparators. So as I mentioned before, businesses that perhaps were not in operation in April 2019 will still be able to calculate a revenue decline using various alternative revenue decline comparators. And the goal here is to make sure that all small businesses will be able to be eligible to apply for the grant. As you see, the chart on this slide shows the different comparators. So I think one thing you'll notice when you look at the comparators is what the program is trying to capture is 2 points in time, one where the business would have been kind of in normal operations versus when they would have been experiencing some kind of public health restriction. So for example, if you look at the second row in the chart, this is for a small business that went into operation after April 2019, and so as a result couldn't use that more general comparator. So sometime between May 2019 and January 2020, the revenue comparator that they would use is February 2020 and April 2020. When you think back, February was sort of a pre-pandemic, pre-lockdown, provincial lockdown month, whereas April, the province was in a lockdown scenario. And so as a result, it's meant to be a good representation of the impact that that business would have been experienced in the current provincial shutdown. And then just a note at the bottom of the slide, winter seasonal businesses will also be permitted to apply, and there's an alternative revenue decline comparator of they can choose between December 2019 and December 2020 or January 2020 and December 2020. And that's just a recognition that winter seasonal businesses may have a different rhythm and cadence to their business. And so we're providing some flexibility for those businesses. All right, and then slide 5 provides the list of eligible small business types. So these are ones that are subject to closures or significant restrictions under the current shutdown. As we mentioned, this is sort of the first test that businesses need to meet as part of the application process. And if they meet this plus the revenue test, they will be able to receive a minimum of 10,000 and up to 20,000. For the period of the provincial shutdown, I just wanted to note that this is also the list of businesses that will be eligible for the, excuse me, for the property tax and energy rebate. So I know we're focusing on this program, but it's just another reminder that there are other support programs in place for businesses. So if they don't meet some of the other tests, for example, around revenue or employees, there are these other rebates that we could also apply for. And it's all in the same portal, which makes it much easier for businesses to be able to enter that information. And then the footnote on the bottom there, just to be clear that there are businesses that are not eligible. And those include those that were already required to close prior to the introduction of the modified stage 2 measures in October. So that's kind of the starting point for determining business eligibility. And then of course, any essential businesses that are permitted to operate either within capacity restrictions or otherwise deemed essential are not eligible for the program. And so this is the final slide, and hopefully that gives you a good snapshot of program parameters and eligibility. And I will turn it over to, I guess it's folks to take you through the portal itself.
Great, thank you very much, Tim. I appreciate you walking through some of the very detailed information on the small business support grants. For those of you who may have joined us before the holidays, you'll recall that we held a similar webinar to this, talking about that upcoming grant program. But certainly everything that Tim went through is some of the finer details which have since been released and fleshed out. And that application is currently accepting intake at this moment. So I encourage everyone, if you are eligible, to take advantage of it and submit an application. But next, to walk you through exactly how to submit that application, I'm going to introduce Manish Agrawal, who is a representative from the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services, to walk you through the TPON database, which is the application portal in terms of how to take advantage of not only the small business support grants, but also the Main Street support, the PPP $1,000 grant, as well as the energy rebates and others. And so with that, Manish, I will turn it over to you.
So I've heard about this new program, and I come to Ontario.ca with a beautiful background. Here I click on English, and I see the link where it says support we are providing for small business. I want to know, as a small business, what kind of support I'm getting from the Government of Ontario. I click on this link, which takes me to a page with all details about the different programs that the Government of Ontario is having for in support of small businesses. I see here that there's a new program. I click on it, and it takes me to the page where it provides me the list of the programs that are currently available: Ontario Small Business Support Grant, Ontario Main Street Relief Grant, PP support, property tax, energy cost rebates, and what you need to apply. So the program information, what the program is, what I will get as a small business, what are the eligibility criteria, and information about the other programs as well. So I decide to apply for the Ontario Small Business Support Grant because I meet the eligibility criteria. I'll click on apply for funding. Now, when I click for apply for funding, I'm going to show you the test page because I don't want to overwhelm the live system. So it brings me to a page like this. So what you have here is that get help button, which allows me to get help from the contact center or get access to the program information guide. If I want to apply in French, I can switch to French as well. If I've already applied for the other programs, I don't need to start a new application. I can resume the application, or if I've saved the application for draft because I didn't add all the information, I can continue with the same application. Or I can apply for funding. I can start with a new application. So given that I'm a new applicant, I'm going to click on apply for funding. And it brings me to this page where I need to check the eligibility, if I can apply for these programs or not. By default, the new program is selected. I can select multiple programs if I'm interested, or I can just apply for that program. Click on check eligibility, which will again take me to a series of questions to check my eligibility for the program. The first question for the Small Business Support Grant program is, was my business required to close temporarily or significantly restrict services as a result of being subject to province-wide shutdown? I will say yes. Does your business have less than 100 employees? That's the definition for a small business. You can say yes. And is my business expecting at least a 20% revenue decline? I have a handy reference to the business guide that I can access if I want to know more information about what revenue decline means. I'll say yes, and then I click on next. Now it says that I'm eligible for the following funding program, the Ontario Small Business Grant. I'm going to start my application. Now, when I start my application, it takes me to a series of steps. It's going to ask me to provide my business information, my contact information, information related to the new Ontario Small Business Support Grant, then review all the information I provided in the 3 steps, provide my banking information, and submit. So I come here, I provide my legal name. So I'm running a small business, Olivia's Tea Room, so I provide information. I run it as Store of Happiness. And I provide my CRA business number. Now, at this stage, I can validate the business number if I'm not sure if my business number is correct or not. If it's correct, I don't need to validate it there. If I don't know where to get the business number, we provide a handy tip. It can be found on the GST, HST return, or the employer payroll, or T2 corporate tax filing. Now, if I'm a self-proprietor who doesn't have a business number, we also provide a handy link on how to obtain the business number from the CRA website. The next step is to provide the address information. I can use address lookup postal code, or if I know the address, I can directly key it in. Okay, so I have that. My billing address is same as head office address. If it's different, I can provide that as well. Click on next. Here I'm going to provide my contact information. Nash, last name is phone number, and my email address. Okay, so I've provided information. I've confirmed my email address is that. It's very important to provide the correct email address, validate it again, because that's the address that is being used in terms of sending emails, confirming the receipt of your application, confirming the payment process, and if you have to come back and resume your application. I'm going to confirm that I'm the owner and I have the signing authority for the individual, trust, for the business. At this point, I can save a draft, which allows me to come back. If I don't have all the information, I can come back and resume the application. All this information will be saved. I don't have to provide that information again. Click on next. Now here I'm going to provide information very specific to the Ontario Small Business Support Grant. Right up front, we provide the application guide, which the users can review, the applicants can review in case they have more questions or they want to find more about the program. I need to provide my business type, and if it's restaurants and bars. Now it asks me if my question is part of an enterprise. or an affiliated enterprise. We have a handy tip in terms of what it means, enterprise, or they can refer to the application guide for more information. So my business is not part of an enterprise, so I'm not going to check that. Now here, if I was having a winter seasonal business, like a ski resort or any business that is associated with winter seasonal, I can say yes, and it will ask me a series of questions. If my business was in operation in the current business structure in December 2019, if I say yes, it's going to ask me for my highest monthly revenue, either in December 2019 or January 2020, given that many winter seasonal businesses don't start operating until January. For the purposes of this demo, I'll say no, my business is not a winter seasonal business. Then the next question is, was my business in operation in the current business structure in April 2019? If I say yes, it will ask me to provide number of employees, my revenue in April 2019, my revenue in April 2020. If I say no, it prompts me to provide my business first full month of operation, the month. And based on that, it's going to ask me for the same information in terms of number of employees, what was my revenue, and in February 2020, what was my revenue in April 2020. For the purpose of the demo, again, I'll say yes, it was in business structure in operation in April 2019. The number of employees were 10. The revenue was 10,000 in April 2019. In April 2020, the revenue is 2,000. Then I attest that the information I'm providing is all good. I go through the terms and conditions. I agree. I've provided now information with respect to this program. I'll say next. Now here I can review all the information I've provided, the business information, the contact information, the information related to Ontario Small Business Support Grant. So all the information has been provided. It all looks good. I can go to the next step, which is to provide my banking information. There's a sample check, copy of sample check provided, just in case people want to see where their branch, what their branch number, institution number, and account number is located on the check. So I'll put that in here. And I'll select the institution number. Now there are many banks. We're just not limiting to the top 5. We cover a broad spectrum of banks within the province. And provide the account number. That's it. Then verify that all the information I provided is correct and click on submit. So when I click on submit, again, some terms and conditions. I'll be attesting as Manish Agrawal that all the information I'm providing is true, agree, and submit. So once I do that, my application is submitted. And so it's just a test environment. So it's saying that there's a problem because I've already used the CRA business number. So we have a check as well to ensure that the CRA business number is not used again. There's only one application that can be submitted with that application. But once I click on submit, my application will be submitted, and I'll get a notification saying that your submission, your application has been submitted. Let me quickly share the email with you on how it looks. The business will receive an email similar to this, where it says that you've applied for this program. This is your authorization number, and it's under review. And if it's approved, you will receive a subsequent confirmation email notifying that your payment has been processed. And that it takes around 2 weeks to receive your payment once the application has been approved.
Thank you very much, Manish. I appreciate you walking everyone through some of the finer details there about how to access those supports, and certainly encourage everyone to submit an application, or if you do have additional questions, you can contact us directly at minister.mcleod@ontario.ca. We'll work our best to get you the answer that you're looking for. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Minister McLeod for some closing remarks. Minister, over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Derek, and thanks everyone for joining us here today. It was a very successful, I think, webinar. I do encourage you all to apply for these grants. Some may fit, some may not, but I do encourage you. If ever you have any questions, please know that we are always open and accessible in the office, and you can reach us at any time at minister.mcleod@ontario.ca. I would like to remind everyone today to consider joining myself and the Premier at 2 p.m. And for a webinar to discuss and walk through how and when regions will reopen and what this means for our sectors. So we've been working around the clock to make sure that if we're in a position to open in certain areas, that we can. So I want to make sure that we are communicating with everybody very clearly. So we'll have a great presentation this afternoon. I'll also be outlining some additional supports throughout the ministry that will be coming online, and how we're going to be approaching that. So again, just thanks everyone for being here, and would really encourage you again to sign up for this afternoon if you haven't done so already. So I just, on that note, would just encourage you all to stay safe and stay home if and when you can. So please, I'll thank you for participating here today, but please make sure you join us this afternoon. All right. Thank you very much, Derek.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. We'll speak to you this afternoon if you're free.